The year is 2011. Time 6 p.m. The smell of simmering stew fills the house. Plates are being dished up, steam rises off the pap. Chicken, chakalaka, a familiar comfort. Outside, the sun begins to set, painting the sky in warm orange and pink. Inside the house, the TV flickers on. The whole family gathers, elbow to elbow, eyes forward. It's Soapie time. This wasn't just a daily routine. It was sacred, a communal ritual that stitched generations together. Television back then held a wide spectrum of storytelling. Textured, flawed, yet full of life. Soapies were more than just entertainment. They were aspiration. They didn't just reflect society, they shaped who we dreamed we could become. Backstage made stardom feel reachable. It put choreography, hustle, and youth culture into the spotlight. It told you your hustle could carry you. City Sesla captured the chaos of shared rent, shared dreams, and township-born ambitions. We laughed at the inside jokes, but it hit because we knew those struggles, the awkward in-between spaces, not rich, not poor, black rising, but still grinding. Scheme Sum reminded us that ambition starts early, in classrooms, libraries, detention halls. It said your future is being written in chalk right now. Even Generations, as glossy as it was, taught us about power, boardrooms, affairs, double crosses, but the villains weren't just evil, they were driven, and somehow we still wanted their lives. Then there was the older classics like Bophelo ke Semphego, which was made with the gravity of drama, rooted in community, tradition, and consequence. It didn't flinch from showing the cost of choices. It held up a mirror to black life with no gloss, no filter, just raw cultural weight. These shows weren't perfect, but they made you want something: a career, a stable relationship, a home, a future with structure, purpose, and dignity. Even in their melodrama, they carried values. They dared to imagine black life beyond struggle, beyond survival. And during this whole investigation, rewatching old episodes, pulling clips, listening to old theme songs, I started getting this feeling. These shows felt like theater, just caught on camera. There was something sacred in their construction. They weren't just shot, they were crafted. Every scene, every glance, every line, it was building something. Dreams, warnings, blueprints, culture. They didn't just tell stories, they told us who we are allowed to be. With many of these South African dramas, such as Tata, Soul City, Yizo Yizo, even Intersections, they were made with a discipline, intention, and emotional weight of live theatre. Every scene felt deliberate, like it had a message. You could tell the characters weren't just for entertainment. They were there to educate, heal, and provoke emotion. The storytelling was socially conscious, intimate, and often based on real-life case studies or community input. In theatre, this is called moral architecture. They asked, what are we trying to leave the audience with? Today, much of South African television feels like it's built for engagement metrics, not reflection. Every plotline needs to end with a twist, a killing, or a cliffhanger. It has been shifted to seem less about what the story means and more about how fast it can trend. Our screens are filled with gangsters in suits, corruption, sex-hungry politicians, and glamorous criminals. I don't understand why South African television has gone from showing real life to glorifying the underworld. I mean, prime television right now is showing us shows where power equals corruption, success equals violence, love is manipulation, and intelligence is criminal strategy. Okay, let's take a closer look at the most watched South African soapies today. On the surface, they promise drama, romance, and gripping storylines. But when you peel back the layers, a pattern emerges. The river, for example, follows two families whose lives collide after a diamond is discovered in Kalinin, just outside of Pretoria. At the center is Lindiwe Dlamini Dikana, a woman who pulled herself from the gutters of poverty to become a diamond mining magnate. But beneath the rags to riches fantasy lies something darker. The river is, at its core, about corruption and power, about the cost of keeping wealth and the blood that gets spilled along the way. Gomorrah, according to DSTV, tells a story of inequality, the fine line between Santon wealth and Alexandra hustle. But watch long enough and you'll realize the real story is about revenge, trauma, gangsters, and generational pain. It's about how crime creeps into the family, education, and morality, blurring the lines between victim and villain. The Wife, on the other hand, from Showmax, presents itself as a love story seen through the eyes of women who fall for 8 Zulu brothers. But these aren't ordinary men, they are part of a high-powered, brutal crime family. And the romance is laced with blood, secrets, and shootouts. The men carry body bags like they're carrying bouquets, and yet it's the violence that's centered. The romance is just part of the package. Adulting, Isita, Outlaws, even Generations, The Legacy, they all echo the same frequency. Crime, betrayal, manipulation, and moral erosion have become the pillars of modern storytelling. The lead character isn't the school teacher or the wide-eyed student anymore. It's the mob boss, the corrupt politician, the tenderpreneur with a hit list. But let's not pretend that this is completely new. South African television has explored crime and corruption before. We just told those stories differently. Back then, crime wasn't the hero. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't aspirational. Take Yizo Yizo, for example, one of the most iconic and controversial high school dramas to ever come out of South Africa. It was gritty, raw, and brutal. It exposed gang culture, drugs, sex work, and a failing education system. Stylized characters like Papa Action and Chester sometimes unintentionally glamorized the gangster lifestyle, but overall the message was clear: these paths lead to ruin. Then there was Zone 14, a township-based drama that fused soccer dreams with political intrigue, gang warfare, and local hustling. It told a story of ambition in the face of inequality, but always highlighted the dangers of living too close to the edge. It was real, but grounded in community, not chaos. Even smaller shows like Gazlam, which aired in the early 2000s, and it showcased the fast-paced urban life of Johannesburg, clubs, sex, money, ambition, but with a darker undertone. Characters weren't necessarily criminals, but the lifestyle itself was soaked in compromise and moral gray areas. But what I'm trying to get to is there was a difference. Those stories didn't always glorify the criminal. In fact, the gangsters of those years weren't made to look desirable. They were always scruffy, unpredictable, and often deeply flawed. Leather jackets, dusty boots, and a hard life. Not something most people would dream of becoming. Even Generations, in its original 1990s to 2000s form, wasn't crime-focused. It gave us corporate drama, betrayal, backroom deals, and yes, even murder, but always within a business or family context. It was a kind of soft glamorization of ruthless success, not street-level bloodshed. Backstage followed the same formula as well. While it primarily focused on music, dance, and creative ambition, it didn't shy away from the darker arcs. There were drug dealers, exploitative producers, and sexual predators in the music industry, all presented within a cultural ecosystem of pop stardom and survival. These shows reflected real problems: South Africa's ongoing struggles with corruption, inequality, and poverty, and they weren't perfect, but they had balance. Now the balance is gone. Today, crime is not just the theme, it's the core. It's not a subplot, it's the entire plot. It's the character arc, the resolution, the climax. And it begs the question, when crime becomes the only story we can tell, what are we teaching the next generation to admire? The South African television industry has fundamentally changed. Producers today are driven by commercial pressure, chasing ratings, trying to meet platform demands for content that's gritty, viral, and addictive. Crime-centered stories are cost-effective, easy to script, and almost always guaranteed to trend. But when revenue models and the constant urge of chasing a viral moment begins to shape creativity, we lose cultural responsibility. Historically, SABC TV launched in January 1976, drawing over 1 million viewers during the first broadcast, with approximately 2,500 TV sets that were sold shortly after. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, shows like Generations, 7 Dilan, Zone 14, and Isidingo drew between 1 and 4 million viewers per episode. In January 2010, Generations averaged 4.2 million viewers weekly, while Zone 14 drew 3.18 million. 7 Dilan peaked at 1.9 million in 2009, dropped to 1.8 million by 2016, then briefly rose above 3 million by 2018 before being cancelled in 2023 due to declining ratings and budget constraints. Isidingo, on the other hand, fell from 1.13 million in 2018 to about 780,000 by early 2020, before it was also cancelled. DSTV, which launched in October 1985, began with just 16 channels and grew rapidly from 10,000 decoder sales in its first month to over 215,000 subscribers by mid-1998 and 3.5 million by 2011. It peaked at around 9 million subscribers in 2022, but between 2023 and 2025, DSTV lost over 1.2 million subscribers as streaming services rose and affordability became a major issue for consumers. While DSTV's revenue began to fall, something else quietly rose. A DSTV stream viewership jumping by 38% and Showmax subscriptions surged by 44% in that same period. The industry saw where the numbers were going and they followed. More and more networks started greenlighting shows that were built to go viral, stories that could hook you in 15 seconds. Shock value became a selling point. Shows like 7 Dilan, Backstage, and Isidingo, once family soapies, were either cancelled or faded quietly into the background. While shows with shootouts, betrayals, and bloodstained cliffhangers took center stage. It wasn't just about telling a good story anymore. It became about the moment, that one shocking scene that could be clipped and posted online, that wild twist you see trending on Twitter or flooding your WhatsApp group. And in chasing those moments, something deeper got lost. The slower stories, the character arcs that taught us something, that made us feel like we were watching real people live. Those started feeling boring. Not because they were bad, but because they just didn't trend. They weren't meme worthy. Nobody talked about them the next day at school or at work. So we stopped watching. And there's the part that nobody really wants to admit. We're not watching together anymore. There was a time when 6 p.m. meant one thing. Plates in hand, the whole family squeezing onto the couch. Now we're all in our own corners. One person's on the couch with AirPods, someone else is watching in bed. You don't need a living room anymore, just a screen and a connection. So yes, people still watch, but not together, not for the same reasons. What used to be a shared experience, something that brought families closer, sparked conversations, made us feel seen, has become a solo habit shaped by algorithm and timelines. We've moved from purpose-driven storytelling to content engineering to blow up. From stories that held mirrors to our lives to scenes designed for likes and retweets. And while that might be profitable to the industry, it comes at a cost. a small quiet loss of connection, meaning, and memory. The thing is, we can't put all the blame on television. The traditional family unit has changed. Two-parent households are no longer a default, not because people don't want them, but because the world isn't structured to support them like they used to. Today, many homes are built around co-parenting agreements, shared custody schedules, and solo parenting, not by choice, but by necessity, and that changes everything. Raising a family on one income in South Africa has become near impossible. According to Stats SA, the average household needs 2 or more incomes just to survive, let alone thrive. Parents are working longer hours, picking up extra gigs, commuting further, or running side hustles just to make ends meet. For many single parents, there is no such thing as free time. Evenings are for cooking, helping with homework, cleaning, preparing for the next day. By the time the television comes on, they're already too tired to sit and soak in the story. Not because they don't want to, but because rest has become a luxury. And the kids, they often raised by screens in different ways now. Not by soapies or Sunday movies, but by YouTube shorts, TikTok algorithms, or whatever is trending on Netflix. They don't just watch shows, they scroll, they swipe, they fast forward. The patience we once had to sit through a full episode to follow a character arc week by week, that's fading. And it's not just about who's home, it's about how homes feel. The warmth, the chaos, the noisy laughter from the lounge, the uncles making tea during ad breaks, your mother yelling at a character on the screen. Those moments aren't gone completely, but they're rare. Families are more spread out. Extended relatives don't live together the way that they used to. Everyone's moving, hustling, surviving. And let's be honest too, it's not just economic pressure. Sometimes it's also about choice. Some of us don't want to sit and watch what the whole family is watching. We want our own screens, our own shows, our own peace. Technology has made that possible. Everyone can watch whatever they want, whenever they want. But in giving us that freedom, something intimate slips through the cracks. And the thing is, it's not so bad. Maybe the new generation is finding their own form of connection. Maybe their online group chats, Discord servers, or comment sections are their version of family time. Different, but not necessarily less meaningful. Maybe community just looks different now. Still, we can't ignore the loss. We don't gather like we used to, not just physically, but emotionally. And that shift from shared laughter in one room to isolated streaming in many is a quiet but powerful reflection of how much the world has changed. We're not asking for perfect shows. We're not asking for fairy tales. We're asking for a balance. For stories with imagination, humor, hope, and community. For characters who win without selling their soul. And even though we know it's just acting, it's still programming. These stories build emotional blueprints, especially for young viewers who've been watching since they were kids. Maybe the question isn't whether South African television can dream again, it's whether we still believe dreams are worth tuning in for. Let us know in the comment sections below what you think about the state of South African television today. This is the Need to Know channel, and thank you.